The last few years have brought new challenges for our children and compounded existing problems. I'm Stephen Albritton. Tonight we're taking an in-depth look at that issue of the state of our kids. According to the CDC, in 2021, 37% of high school students reported they experienced poor mental health during the COVID-19 pandemic. And 44% of students said they persistently felt sad or hopeless since the pandemic started. Wlwt investigative reporter Jatera McGee has been analyzing the data, talking to experts, and sitting down with our kids to find out where we go from here.
We've been digging into this for months, and what we found is the kids are not all right.
I was like, hold on, this is not good for me.
Kids and teens reaching a breaking point. Experts pointing to the pandemic.
It's definitely a crisis.
The needs are higher now than ever before.
Isolation, remote learning, loss of routine, and for some, the loss of loved ones.
I had a bunch of family members passing away. It felt like a blur to me, honestly.
The pandemic deeply affecting our kids, their mental health, their education.
It's incredibly frustrating.
And their social interactions. 2 years later, we're navigating and defining a new normal.
My kids are not as accustomed to going through a grocery store.
We have to talk about mental health.
Tonight, the challenge is ahead and solutions needed as we all are changing course. The most urgent issue is what experts have dubbed a mental health crisis among kids. They're keeping a close eye on the pandemic's effect on youth suicide. A study published by JAMA Pediatrics looked at adolescent suicide in 14 states. Researchers compared the pre-pandemic period from 2015 to 2019 to 2020. In those 14 states, there were about 835 adolescent suicides a year during the pre-pandemic period. In 2020, that number was 903. Behind those numbers are real people. Devastated families with a million questions they'll never get answered. Suicide prevention advocates say we have to talk about it. Benmorrison's mom is trying. The roars inside a high school stadium on a Friday night can say a lot about a school, about camaraderie of a team and togetherness of a community. But outside the Loveland Tiger Stadium, this tree that every player, coach, parent, and fan now walks past silently commands attention.
They created this beautiful monument with his two helmets.
It's a tribute in honor of Benmorrison, a former Loveland student athlete and 2020 grad.
So like I was saying, it just needs a little love.
The weeds aren't rooted deep. This mother's pain is.
I still come here a lot. Came to lacrosse games, football games last year. But it's also sad. He was so funny. He was so well loved. And he loved.
Tori Morrison's son died less than a year after graduating. She holds game day memories close. She loved watching her son do what he loved. In March 2021, Ben died of suicide. The enormous loss left a hole in his mom's heart that can feel larger than a football field.
I can find things to blame myself for. I can find things to blame a coach for. I can find things to blame anybody for. And it's still hard to say. And it's taken a year and a half to get there, but it was his decision.
A decision she wishes she knew her son was weighing.
There were no signs. He was really good at hiding them, I think. I've talked to coaches he's had, I've talked to parents, I've talked to his friends. The resounding theme is always never Ben.
When the world stopped in March 2020, Ben's world came to a screeching halt.
We went home thinking we're going to be back in 2 weeks and, you know, it's just an extended spring break. He'll get to play a season. And then he didn't. And it kind of went from there. You know, we lost prom, we lost graduation.
Ben decided to start working instead of going to college.
He didn't want to. He never really wanted to unless he could play sports. And then the sport he would have played would have been lacrosse. And that kind of fell through with not having senior year.
Tori says the night before Ben died, he was up late signing up for Cincinnati's civil service test to become a firefighter.
Mom, I stayed up, I signed up, I did all that. And then not even 8 hours later.
Now, a year and a half later, Ben's family, friends, and coaches are left grieving a loss they can't comprehend. Tori looks forward to visits from Ben's old teammates and friends.
Getting that hug from them, I mean, it's not a Ben hug, but it helps. And I actually prefer when they come to me a little stinky because it reminds me of my boy.
She likes being around the team and stadium where her son was happiest.
He's like, Mom, 48 is not a good lacrosse number. 21 is a good lacrosse number.
Since his death, messages and cards, some Tori is not ready to read yet, admire Ben's loyalty and friendship.
They do, but why didn't he see it? That's the hard one.
She's working hard to prevent other families from going through a similar journey.
I love everything that I'm doing, but then I'll have a day where I'm like, why is this my life?
By the power vested in me as mayor and on behalf of the City Council and the City of Loveland, do hereby proclaim the month of August 2022 as Mental Health Month.
We can't help anybody if we don't share our story.
This city proclamation is only a start.
We spent 4 days at the hospital, and I remember the very first day saying, I can't be quiet.
Tori Morrison decided to speak up because she wants her family's story to save lives. She wants people to have 988, the new suicide prevention hotline number, memorized. We have a QR code on your screen to help connect you to resources like 988 and more. Mental health professionals are here to help, and in countless instances already have. The CDC looked at all emergency department visits from March to October of 2020. The proportion of mental health related visits increased by 24% among U.S. children aged 5 to 11. That's from the previous year. Among kids aged 12 to 17, there was a 31% increase. Cincinnati Children's Hospital says its treatment team is also seeing an increase in kids with mental health needs in the ER. We sat down with Dr. Courtney Cinco, a board-certified child and adolescent psychiatrist and pediatrician. She says the emergency room has been in overflow status, with more patients waiting for inpatient beds than there are beds available. That wait can last days. In other parts of the country, some kids are waiting weeks to be admitted.
It just makes everything worse, to be honest with you. It just, when someone's already depressed and just barely hanging on, and then they're told they have to wait to even, start the treatment process, it's so taxing.
Cinco says adults need to understand there is a mental health crisis among youth, worsened by the pandemic.
We just want to think the best of things because the alternative is just really hard to handle, that so many kids are struggling and so many kids are sad and worried and lost.
Cinco's advice: adults need to be intentional about talking to kids, reminding them it's okay to not be okay, but there is help if they want it.
I worry about my patients, I worry about the kids we see and the families, and it's hard to just go through it every day and just see so much struggle and know that there's hope, but you have to give it and you have to work really hard to get it out there.
Mental health conversations shouldn't only be happening at home. School districts are taking on a new vital role in this process. Mason is one of a growing number of communities where mental health is top of mind. Mason sophomore Ella Hardesty says she's always put a lot of pressure on herself to make good grades. Switching to virtual classes her 7th grade year, then back in person for 8th, was a big adjustment.
Having everything out of my control made me want to control my academics and everything around me even more.
Ella talked with her mom and started seeing one of Mason's school-based therapists.
I was like, everything's changing. I might need some help with this.
Emily Meyer with Children's Hospital leads Mason's program, as well as programs at Oak Hills and St. X.
A lot of them are searching for a sense of belonging.
Meyer says more students are struggling socially and emotionally than before the pandemic.
We've seen an increase in severe cases of depression as early as, 2nd, 3rd grade. We've seen it.
She says every school district could use more help.
We definitely have wait lists, unfortunately.
When a student gets the call, they receive a full diagnostic assessment and an individualized treatment plan. For Ella, the process worked.
It's been like life-changing. It's just, yeah, it makes me feel like Ella again.
Now she's part of the solution, selected by her classmates to join Mason's Hope Squad, a peer-to-peer suicide prevention program.
Yes, those are my people.
At the neighboring middle school, teacher Stephanie Brittingham advised the first Hope Squad class of 8th graders last year.
I think sometimes people forget how hard middle school is.
Hope Squad members can refer students to a counselor. One anonymous referral last school year stands out.
The student who was reported about ended up getting help and the help that they needed, but it wasn't discovered until later that that student had actually written a note about taking their own life, and they had a plan.
School counselors were able to step in before it was too late.
The one student that made that anonymous referral literally saved somebody's life.
We are positioned well, but there's so much more to do.
Mason City Schools introduced Hope Squad and started building its mental wellness team several years ago. A talk with students lit a fire.
They basically said, you are the adults in our life. You are the folks that are making a safe environment for us. We need you to step up and start to do something about this. We cannot lose another classmate to suicide.
Superintendent Jonathan Cooper says district leaders listened and leaned in. Walking through a school today, you'll find encouraging notes on whiteboards, calming rooms for self-reflection, and QR codes connecting students to help in seconds.
Mental wellness goes through everything. So whether you're an athlete, whether it's your academics, whether it's your home life, your friend life here, our kids are on 24/7, which is different than when I was growing up.
While many students are benefiting from Mason's mental wellness programs, the hope is more schools follow along.
Districts want to do something about it, but it takes resources, it takes people to come together, it takes a lot of strategy. So we hope that we can build a model here that can actually be a lighthouse to other districts.
Experts say it's best to have open communication with your kids. Don't be afraid to ask questions, like if they're having thoughts of self-harm or of not wanting to be here. When we return, catching up on English and math when there's a lot more to the equation.
It's like I was more worried about other things than school at the time.
The toll of the pandemic on education and how remote learning is being reflected on report cards. Plus, we're sitting down with the new superintendent of Cincinnati Public Schools, why she says the district needs to get back to the basics. Welcome back to Changing Course. A major part of kids recovering from the pandemic is education. Remote learning and distractions at home put many of our kids behind. At John Community High School, recovery is a team effort.
Let's go, don't stop!
Summer break does not mean time off when football season is around the corner.
Pain is temporary, but pride is forever.
John Community High School football players learning to push past their limits.
Let's go get that pride. Let's go!
They're growing together as a team and into young adults.
They all have changed to become better students. They become better people.
Also growing, second-year head coach Jared Ward, who has a lot to prove.
Come on, let's go. Effort, Greg, effort, Greg, effort, Greg.
He's focused on much more than how many games his guys win, how many passes they block, or touchdowns they score.
They go to summer school from 8 to 12, and then they're with me from 12 to 5. I feed them 3 times a day. They get to take food home if they need be.
Let's go, stand up!
Ward drills into his players that working hard matters, and it goes beyond the field.
We want y'all to come every day, get a good education, get a good workout, make it to college. That's what we about.
John is a multi-campus high school focused on credit recovery. Many of its students come in from other schools, months or even years behind.
Then you have to remember, any whole number when you change it to a fraction is going to have a 1 in the denominator.
Ramiko Solomon is a senior and football player. His freshman year was disrupted by the pandemic.
I did my most of my 9th grade year, then COVID came. So we had to go virtual. It just wasn't clicking. I was trying, but I didn't get all of it done in time.
He's making up most of the credits from the end of his 9th grade year and his 10th grade year.
I was more worried about other things than school at the time. My grandmother had passed away, and I had a bunch of family members passing away over COVID.
You can understand why math problems took a back seat to life's bigger ones. But now, Romiko is laser focused on school.
Top priority right now, because I wanted to build a career for myself, so.
He says the grandmother he lost to COVID is his motivation.
I want to become a music producer, so that comes with math, so I got to get my math together.
James Lamping is starting his 17th year teaching at Dawn.
A lot of them were already behind before this. And everything builds, you know, especially math. It builds from year to year to year. If you don't have that basis, strong base, then it makes it difficult.
Lamping directs the summer school program and teaches science during the traditional school year. He says even some of his best students struggled with attendance and completing assignments online. Confidence, which was already low for many students, took an immeasurable hit.
They have the potential. Nobody in the past has told them they can do it. They just lack that confidence.
Summer school is a second or third chance to regain that confidence, catch up and learn one-on-one.
I teach them more, I think, about life than I do chemistry. It's showing them how to do handshakes, how to speak to adults.
Those crucial life lessons aren't written into the lesson plan or the game plan.
Think about how good you gonna be when you done been through everything ain't nobody else been through. Y'all feel me? Yes, sir. Nah, do y'all feel me? Yes, sir.
Teaching a generation of kids getting knocked down doesn't define you. What counts is how you get back up.
1, 2, 3. Hard work. 4, 5, 6. Family.
According to the Pew Research Center, 28% of parents are extremely worried their teen may have fallen behind in school because of disruptions caused by COVID-19. 24% are somewhat concerned. There's growing evidence kids of all ages are still playing catch-up. That's especially true for those who were already at a disadvantage before the pandemic. Children with disabilities, socioeconomically disadvantaged, or geographically isolated youth. University of Cincinnati School of Education Director Mary Wlwt says issues like access to technology and absenteeism were significantly worse in high-poverty schools.
Clearly, the evidence is saying that disproportionately children in high-poverty schools have been differentially affected. All kids have been impacted, but those kids have been impacted more.
Wlwt says leaders should look to best practices like high-intensity tutoring, summer programs, and small learning groups. Even then, recovering from COVID learning loss will not be easy, and growing teacher shortages aren't helping.
To have any acceleration in retirements of teachers or teachers leaving the workforce is going to just add or exacerbate the outcomes, the negative outcomes for kids. Sometimes we can't even close gaps well. Sometimes we can create parallel trajectories, but that's not good enough. That's not good enough. Closing a gap requires more intensive resources for those who need that closure.
I sat down one-on-one with the new leader of the largest school district in our region, Cincinnati Public Schools Superintendent Ironetta Wright. We talked about the difficult reality she's walking into, including the majority of CPS students testing below average in math and English.
What does that make you think?
It makes me think we have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do. When you think about math and you look at our previous data around math, our students have consistently struggled in the area of math. And so therefore the pandemic has only compounded that.
What are you considering to be the biggest challenge ahead of you?
I think the biggest challenge at this point is just re-engaging students in school. And we realize it's important that we go back to the basics, and it doesn't get more basic than the ABCs. And so we're really focusing this year on academics, behavior, and culture.
One of the biggest issues during the pandemic, at least in CPS and a lot of other districts, was absenteeism. How are you all reaching out to those students who might have fallen off the cliff or might be hard to reach or aren't attending as often, to try to get them re-engaged this year?
We have one of our offices that will specifically focus around family and student services. And what does that look like? That looks like calling families. That looks like going out to homes, doing home visits. That's not something that we've done a lot of in the past. That looks like meeting families where they are. One of the best experiences that I've had as a leader is having conversations with students around where they really are. And some people question that. Like, do you really want to talk to students about the fact that they're not proficient? Of course, because the first step to getting help is admitting that there is a problem.
Next, getting kids back to being kids.
There was like this hesitancy to engage with other people because they didn't want to get too close.
How isolation during the pandemic affected socialization. We'll be right back. During the pandemic, most kids missed out on socializing with friends. Many children missing key developmental milestones. Now parents are eager to get their kids re-engaged. Summer camp seems like a great place to start.
The best thing about this camp for us has been the swimming and being able to play outside. Micah, my oldest, he really likes structure. He likes team activities.
Last summer I went from a red band to a yellow band to a green band from doing swim lessons.
For him, I really think that he's found that confidence to kind of dive back in.
I can back float and do backstroke.
Asher, my youngest, he's just a wild child.
Because it's fun.
He comes with a whole lot of energy, and the heart is almost the opposite for him. Not having that structured environment in a classroom where you have to control yourself and how you engage with your neighbor, all bets were off. So this kind of gave him the environment to play and go and be wiggly, but also come back under that, kind of ease into that structure a little bit more.
We've had a high demand in all of our programs. What we're seeing is there is high emotional need.
It was weird that normally every time we had to pull our masks down when we were speaking. I was sad that my friends couldn't really hear me that much.
Summer 2020 brought a lot of rules. In 2021, we were able to alleviate some of those pressure points, but we still kept our capacities really low.
Initially, the kids were very paranoid about being able to get up close to people. There was like this hesitancy to engage with other people because they didn't want to get too close. They were worried about, they don't know what they're afraid of. They just know that we're not allowed to be close to each other. I've definitely noticed this year, there's not that second guess. They just run to go play.
And this year has felt more like camp.
When I'm at camp, I feel happy when I can run around and play kickball.
It becomes a family. There's a huge diversity of age, race, and gender in the staff that they have, which is great.
We are focused on joy. That is our word of the summer. We want kids to be joyful. We want adults to be joyful. We want our staff to be joyful and really bring that happiness back.
And so when you're running around camp, how do you feel?
Happy.
I just touched the bottom.
Kids are very resilient, and mine thankfully have really bounced back.
Thank you for joining us for this important conversation, and to everyone who weighed in. And thank you to Middletown City Schools for hosting us. If you take away one thing tonight, it's that yes, kids are resilient, but they need our help. Whether it's a conversation about mental health, extra attention in the classroom, or reminding them and pushing them to get back out of their comfort zones. We all need to be intentional this back to school season if together we're changing course.
As much as we talk about physical health, we have to talk about mental health.
I like to think of it as like the kid island and the adult island, and the Hope Squad is the bridge.
Hey, I'm coming out of this like a stronger person. I know it doesn't feel like it now, but you will too.
We want all of our kids to grow up to be healthy adults.
And I like to call it learning recovery.
Let's go, stand up. There you go, 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 there you go.
This year I'm back and I'm ready.
Being here, especially, they've been able to catch up.
We learned that we're nimble. We learned that we can adjust and adapt.